What's up, guys? It's Real Some Cheesy, and with the live broadcast being this 25th, tomorrow, of course, I wanted to break down who might be coming this next season, right? And while, I do have my own hopes, especially for Delilah, uh, we'll try to stick solely to the facts and, the data. Try not to have too much bias, of course. Well, at least not at first, but you get my drift. So, of course, let's just break down everything we know. I'll mainly be going over new information since my first video where I talked about all the hinted, characters. I went over a lot of stuff in depth, so feel free to check out that video if you want to see what I'm talking about with some of the old information. I do have a lot of, specific timestamps in there, so if you're just like, oh, I just want to see the Dizzy, I got it all together. So, yeah, feel free to check that out if you're kind of wondering where I'm glossing over some of that stuff. Yeah, of course, let's just break down what you kind of see here, right? So, basically, like I said, I'm going to go over facts and anything, so got a headshot, like in the corner, you can't see me yet, but that's where I'll drop them. On the bottom left, you'll see what each color kind of means. I'll explain that here in a sec when I go over, this Strive 1. But essentially, right, if they have a red, that means they got a redesign that we've seen. Orange means that they have been seen somewhere in Strive. Yellow being that their name's been dropped somewhere in Strive. Green being mentioned, brought up, but not like actually get name dropped. Blue is data minded. So light means that their voice lines have been, and dark means that their models have been. Purple means that they were in like that top 10 for every region's popularity polls, a while back, of course. And pink means that they weren't in all of them, but they had like one or two. And then gray's like others, and again, that's very unique situation, so we'll kind of cover that, one by one. And of course, right below that, it says Season 2 feature 4 exciting playable characters that everyone's been waiting for. So, well, that does mainly refer to old characters, probably, right? There are some new characters, the ones you're probably thinking of that also could refer to, because again, everyone's been waiting for. I mean, obviously, Asuka, for example, right? Like we've literally been waiting since the original Guilty Gears to get our hand on him. So I don't think that does obviously narrow out maybe like newer characters, but yeah, just basically if it's a character that's getting out, it's probably character rare. So that is it's a good idea, right? And of course, like, why is this all, I guess, kind of relevant? Why am I pulling, like, these colors, that stuff? Well, because originally, right, we did see that they let out, like, a roadmap, so they do stick pretty well with, like, what they're going to say. And as for the colors, I mean, as you can see right here, I kind of, like, labeled it to just kind of give an example, right? Where, like, for example, Jacko and Testament, you got their red because they had a redesign. Since Jacko's hair, and like in the story, we got to see that. And then Testament in the credits, we got to see their new design. None of us really picked up on that, but some of us did. A lot of people are like, oh, you didn't even see Testament coming 15 minutes into that first video. But I would have probably put them as like my 5th or 4th, probably like, right behind the big 3. Then would probably been Jam, Testament, or like vice versa. Just because, again, I felt like they were coming like season 3. You know what I mean? But obviously they're in. For Orange, we got quite a few with that, obviously, because we saw Gold Lewis, Jacko, and Happy Chaos in the story mode, so, seeing them. Orange. Yellow, I mean, the first 4, since, all of their names are in the first story, I mean, literally 3 of them were in it, and then Biken was mentioned right next to Delilah. And then, of course, we have our mentioned characters. I mean, Chaos, because he was mentioned quite a bit in the story, he's also mentioned, like, in older games as the original, and then we saw, kind of heard him in Zerd, and you just hear him like mentioned as that man and all that stuff. So he's mentioned all the time. And then Biken, since in Anji's arcade, Anji refers to someone as Ronin, obviously referring to her. And then we go into the the blues, light blue. Middle 3 had their voice lines leaked because people found out those voice lines a little bit after Gold Lewis was out. So Gold Lewis might have been on there, but we don't know. And then their models, of course. We saw the first 3. And then the last 2 obviously did not have their model seen. And then the popularity polls, I mean, Biken, right? She was in every single one of those top characters for all of them. And then, Jacko and Testament only were requested by Asia as their like 9th and 10th picks. So, they have the best track record. So I guess, Arts is really trying to, appease the Asians community. So, there you go. But, I can't believe they're not helping. They're not loving us Westerners. But hey, we were the only one to have Sin on our list, and Sin's getting up there. So I'll have to see. And then finally, with the gray, Gold Lewis and Happy Chaos were shown like in trailers early on, and that's why I gave them that other slot. And then Testament was they had that article. So they did an article after story 1 talking about like different things, answering some questions, and Testament was talked about in there. You know, kind of what they've been up to currently in the modern time, as well as we gained some new information on them in the GG glossary. So yeah, hopefully that gives you a good example of like what I mean by others, just that like they've been kind of pointed out or something in other spots. And you know, since all those characters kind of have these somewhere, and I think a lot of people are like, oh, well, this character's not mentioned, they might get in. You'd be again surprised by how many characters have actually been teased at or have something tying them to Strive, right? So yeah, let's finally just, you know, dive into it, right? And you know, as you see on the right, I personally wouldn't be surprised with a 5th character, right? Just because, you know, as you can kind of see, you know, we have those 4, and then if you look at that top left barely, you see that little like slot, like they could zoom over for another one because they were like zooming that way too in that trailer. But you know, if that was the only thing, you could call me crazy for sure. That's insane. But given that 4 would only put our total roster right now to 24, the interesting thing with that is XX and Zerd actually entered their rosters with 25. So that's why I'm thinking I could see them actually pulling a 5th surprise character, or, you know, season 5 just being guaranteed. But again, I just think like ending season 2 with 25, taking a bit of a break, and then like coming back and like really kind of celebrating Guilty Gear and being like, yeah, this is the first Guilty Gear where we're gonna go like, you know, beyond that 25, like really expand our roster. It would really be something cool. But I mean, it's near the beginning, right? So if we don't like find out tomorrow, I don't think it's happening. I'm kind of just thinking like maybe like a UI Goku and Kefla situation. If any of you all Dragon Ball FighterZ players, where basically they showed UI Goku, and then after that they showed Kefla, and Kefla actually came out before UI Goku. I mean, they could do like 1 and then 2. It is what it is. But you know, they've done, ArcSys has done stuff like in the past. So it wouldn't shock me, but again, it's not guaranteed. They said 4. If it doesn't happen tomorrow, it's not happening, right? But so yeah, I mean, let's just jump into the characters finally then, and I'll kind of be going in order of like how many of those colors that they fill, right? Because you know, as you'll see, there'll be like rings. So the first one, unsurprisingly, is Sin, right? I mean, obviously we got to see, you know, the red for that new redesign in the new story mode. You got to see orange because again, they were seen. They were named in, you know, even before, right? Because one of Kai's like defeated poses, he'll say like Sin, Dizzy, I'm sorry. And he was also mentioned because in story mode 1, you know, Kai refers to his family, obviously referring to, you know, Dizzy and himself, you know, in Sin. And then we have where the data mine voice lines were actually leaked after Testament came out. You saw that Testament had some towards Sin where he was like, or where they were like, you know, if you beat me, you know, I'll give you a treat, basically, is what, you know, they say to Sin. And then their model, you know, we got to see that that's in the character playable folder. So there you go. And as I touched on earlier, right, he was in the popularity poll for the, you know, Americas. So let's go us, right? But there you go. And as you kind of see, I just added the best bets thing. Like I'll kind of go down that list, but yeah, I think if you wanted to bank your money on any character getting added this season, I mean, come on, Sin's the clear kind of choice for now. Make that a little bit smaller so you can fit all the other characters, right? And the next character that we actually have with a lot of circles, obviously the next most, would have to be Delilah. And Delilah is like an interesting one because I think a lot of people kind of would like accept and be okay with the fact that she doesn't get added, but she still has a lot pointing towards it, right? The redesign, kind of funny, but I mean, if you look at Zerd, right, you got to see her legs, you got to see her feet, and then in the new story mode, you saw that she had pants and shoes, so clearly they redesigned her. Maybe they felt like that was, since she was a kid, they didn't want the possibility of looking at her skirt or something, you know, that little dress, but regardless, clearly they care a lot about this character, so they redesigned her. You got to see her in the story. She's been named, you know, in story 1, and then, you know, in Biken's teaser, and then she was mentioned in. It's weird that they name dropped her in Biken's teaser, and then never name drop her in the Biken arcade. They only tease at her or like, you know, mention her, right? Where it's like, ever since I started living with that girl, you know, who's your teacher? You know, a girl about half my age. So mention a bunch, and then others is where it's interesting, right? Because when I was doing that Strive story mode countdown, I got to sit down with Rufelmonger, and I think a really important thing to be brought up here is the fact that they have put a lot of work into Delilah, right? Like the fact that they literally posted like that little article explaining her before, you know, story 2 came out, or, you know, other story, whatever you want to call it, right? But it's just interesting that they went out of their way to do that for her, that they've really been hyping her up. So yeah, that article is why I put her in there, but I wouldn't count her out yet. Again, I feel like a lot of people, like if she's not one of the first 2 characters kind of announced or added, she's probably not coming, but she still has a lot pointing towards her. She's still a brand new character they've been hyping up. And again, if we talk about 4 exciting playable characters that everyone's been waiting for, Delilah's literally been hinted at since like Bedman came into existence, right? Like when I sat down with Dar, or when I talked about Daru's wishlist as well, Daru and a lot of people knew who Delilah was before because they've been hyping her up so much. Again, mentioned story 1, and then they went out of their way to talk about her when they talk about biking. So wouldn't be surprising. She still has a pretty decent shot, but again, I feel she's just in a weird spot where like if she doesn't get added as one of the first characters, like she's probably not coming, right? Sadly. Again, can't count her out yet, and she's got a lot of things pointing to still getting added, so don't lose hope on Delilah, right? And the next couple, you know, we go really down. She had 5. She had like 7 or something, almost all of them, but is actually Dizzy, because, you know, we get to see Dizzy. I know you're gonna be like, oh, she got a redesign. No, that was like her day gown. She had that insert as well. I've seen her in that outfit quite a bit. If she comes, she's probably not gonna be wearing that. Maybe she will, who knows? But again, we've seen her in the new story mode at the end, chilling with Kai. She's been named, again, similarly with the outro. You know, she's like, I'm sorry, Sin, Dizzy. And then she's been mentioned, of course, when Kai's referring to his family, obviously, right? And then she was in the popularity poll every single region, right? So everybody wants to see her, you know, added to Strive. I mean, she'd make a lot of sense. Again, we're talking about returning characters who are popular. I think the fact that there are characters who are literally in every region, like at least 1 or 2 of them is going to be coming in. And Dizzy would fit well into the story, so I could definitely see her getting added. And again, she's got putting a lot, you know, got a lot pointing towards her. So, you know, another good bet for sure. The next one is, you know, Slayer, still, you know, the guy. Slayer, man, it's just... Okay, first off, obviously, they've been named. He's been named twice. He was named in the Nagoriyuki arcade. He was named in the Zato arcade. So, right? The fact that they name drop him, but they don't name drop Delilah, pretty interesting. And then he's mentioned in Souls arcade, where he's like, I don't need to fight like another Nightless, right? Or like he's like, you know, another Nightless. Like I don't have time for this. And similarly in the story mode, he's like you're a Nightless, so I guess that old dandy isn't the only one. So Slayer just has a lot. Again, another popularity poll, every single region. He's just has ties to, again, Nagoriyuki, has ties to Chip, has ties to Demi. Like he's just a very important lore character, very popular. So another really good character to bank on. He also had his voice lines data minded, as you can see with that light blue. So, you know, a lot of people thought he was getting in, and they kind of pulled a fast one on the end, but I think for sure, like him and Sin are probably 2 shoe-ins for this time around. And he's got 4 rings, which is quite a bit, of course. The next one is Asuka, right? Another 4-ringer, but I mean, he's, I don't know. A lot of people are kind of seeing him for like season 3, maybe like that final character. If we ever get like a final character, just would fit really well. But again, redesign. You know, he's got a brand new look. He was seen. He was named. He had his model data minded, but obviously never got added. So, I mean, he's currently on the moon, but again, very important character everyone's been waiting for. Not really too much to talk about. He's not really, other than the model, we really don't have too much to go off him, but it's still a good bet. Again, I think a lot of people, myself included, are kind of thinking like, all right, season 3 is going to be his time, but again, we'll have to see. Maybe he gets out of this season. Maybe he's the last one, and then maybe they introduce a new story. You know, he's a big role. Who knows? And one of the more interesting ones right now is actually Johnny, because Johnny, just a little while ago, there was a video, and I'll link that like right here because I know how to do that. Cool, but Johnny's model's actually in Strive, so he's been named by May in the new story mode. Great, and she mentions him whenever she loses, she'll be like Johnny. But again, model popularity poll every single region. Great. We don't really have like a stance character like him right now, so he'd fit in well, but yeah, not too much to talk about him. But again, another really solid bet, and we've now seen May in the Jellyfish Pirates. I mean, you know, we're just waiting on him to show up, of course. Yeah, perfect. A little tinier, but that's all right. And then I only got a couple more for this best bets, right? But the next one being Jam. Jam is another interesting one. She's been mentioned in the Jacko arcade mode, right? So again, we got to see, because Jacko literally says like, "Oh, a kung fu girl." She was data-minded, her model, right, like Asuka, but then never got added, sadly. And popularity poll every single region. So again, there's a really good shot that she gets in, especially because they get, it's a type of game where it seems like they really got to balance out. They really want to try and balance out like their, I'm gonna make them small. I think those are like kind of little bit smaller likelihood, but still a good chance. I'll redo this. I think Slayer's more likely. I think Delilah is pretty likely. Let me redo this real quick. I think probably Dizzy, because these are like really like the most like Asuka's kind of below, but I still think Asuka has a good chance. I might put him a little bit lower now, but now I'm thinking about it. But again, going off the rings, facts. It's gotta do what we gotta do, right? But again with Jam, very popular. Hinted at a little bit. Model, really good chance. I think this would be like a good season for her to get added, right? And the final character that I have right now for best bets is Elphelt. She's been named in Ram's one of Ram's taunts. She talks about her again every single region for the popularity poll. I think it is a good chance that we do get at least one or two females in this new one, and I think she fit in well. What was there to say, right? She's just a really popular character. A lot of people want to see her come back, so why not have this be her season as well? And the fact that we've now seen like all of like, Ram, Dizzy, Sin, like she's kind of the only one that we really haven't seen for that group, or really heard much about. So it'd be nice to at least see what she's doing, and they could easily like throw her in towards the end and have her kind of appear in that news story mode or something. But yeah, the next one I have is a bit like the likely-ish characters, right? Like it's not in. Actually, yeah, let's do likely. I think this is what I kind of wanted to do. But yeah, I think our best bets definitely have to be Sin, of course. It's alright, guys. I swear I'm professional. Probably like these four, I think, are probably some of our best bets currently, right? And then I'll throw Jam. Yeah, we'll throw Jam down here. I'll throw Johnny in front of her, but you just have again the most pointing towards him. They have the 4 rings, so great. I think Johnny's really likely as well, just because we got the 3. We got 3 here as well. Asuka again has 4, so again, I don't think it's gonna happen season 2, but going back to, and I think Elphelt's also really likely at this point. But I think the next kind of category that you don't gonna really gloss over is wild cards. So wild cards are just characters that, again, you could fit into that category, and again, characters that have been kind of teased out a bit in Stride. And I think the first one easily would have to be some of our XX characters, that being first Zappa. So Zappa has first been seen kinda. We got to see him at the end, similar to Testament, right? We saw him at the end of those end credits, and he wasn't playable in Zerd. He was in the Zerd story, and that's probably why he was added. But I think myself, a lot of people would just see him getting added and look really cool. As well as, similar to Testament, how we talked about that article before. He was in that article too, right? They were talking about how Zappa now has complete control over his spirits. You can call them and use them at any time. He's willing to use them if he has to. So again, it's nice to see that Zappa's doing well with his life. But again, they mentioned Zappa. They're keeping up with his story and talking about him. So really be interesting to see. And again, another wild card. And you just look cool. A lot of these other XX characters, right? And next one being Bridget. Again, popularity poll. We had him as number 10. Japan had her as number 1. So other regions didn't, but they're popular. And the third and final character that was mentioned in that article, just saying like Bridget, has accepted themselves. They're now like a full-time bounty hunter. And he said at the end of his, they were like, and Bridget is about to learn something about themselves, right? So like kind of implying that we're going to learn more, see him again. So Again, seeing as they were Japan's like, number one, I might even put them in front of Zappa just because I've seen them. It does seem like a lot of people want to see this. And I feel like we're going to get at least one more XX character. At least. I think seeing it 2 or more would be cool, but at least one more XX character would probably come into fray. Maybe season 3, maybe this season. But again, little things pointing at him, so that's always cool. The next one would probably be Abba. Abba's interesting because she, in the GG glossary, they talk about homunculuses. And obviously they mention her, she's a homunculus. But they also mention that, like, and they don't do this for, like, any other things. They don't do it for, like, vampires or anything, right? But they say, like, Abba is the only homunculus that we've seen, ... so far. So, I don't know, man. Quite suspicious if you ask me. And that could be, I've kind of theorized that could be referring to possibly Giovanna. I think it'd be interesting if she turned out to be a homunculus. Would fit well and saying she's under Goldless, whatever. Or maybe they're actually referring to her key because we know she's been trying to make her key have a body, and I mean that would technically maybe kind of be homunculus, right? So again, they're teasing at another homunculus. I mean, if we're gonna go homunculus route, she'd definitely be kind of the expert there. So they could do that, and then if it's like Giovanna, maybe her and Giovanna can kind of bond and grow the community, all that stuff. So definitely wouldn't count her out. And again, it's more than a lot of characters have. And kind of, the final XX character I'll talk about is actually Holy or Soul. I mean, they were on, again, Japan's top 10 list. Because every, region had basically the 5 really popular characters in every region, right? They had they didn't say. They had Slayer, Dizzy, Johnny, Jam, and Elphelt. Yeah, those 5 characters were on every single list. Most of them had, good number of characters. 2-ish that were in the game. It was like Ram, or we had Eno, but that was kind of mixed. And as well as 2 unique characters, right? So Asia, they were Asia and Europe were the exact same. They both had Jacko, Testament as their 9th and 10th. We had Sin, and then we had which was because we also had Ram and someone else. And then Japan had Holy Order Soul and Bridget. And Holy Order Soul, you might be like, oh, it's impossible. Given that we did open up that multiverse kind of theory in the Happy Chaos arcade, and put that up there if you want to learn a little bit more about that. But I think because you really could add anybody with that, but I think the most sense would be kind of Holy Order Soul, bring in for a parallel world to either fight or do something with our current soul, right? So definitely have to see on that, but not impossible. And again, I think it'd be cool. They've given ways for all these characters to be relevant in the new Stride story, right? So again, these are for wild card picks, but again, people love their old XX characters. Might be like, oh, Zappa's broken, Bridget would be annoying, but they've shown they're willing to change up characters. So again, can't count out for that reason. And the final kind of wild card would actually probably be Venom, right? Because it's interesting because the reason I bring them up in particular is because I see them a lot on Twitter, and not America, English Twitter, but Korean and Japanese Twitter. Mainly because I'm looking at those because I'm looking at Delilah art, right? I try to retweet everything that's Delilah, but I would translate a lot, and a lot of them would be season 2 predictions or wish lists, and a lot of them had Sin, Delilah, Venom, Sin, Delilah, Venom, Sin, Delilah, Venom, Elphelt. That was kind of the most I saw, but again, it's interesting that they all really like Venom. I think a lot of people would like to see Venom, but also he was mentioned in Story Mode 1 when they're talking about what Zato and Miller's kind of motivation to keep kind of moving forward. One person Zato brings up is I had a friend that was really dear to me, risked his life to kind of make sure that we could get here. And that's obviously referring to Venom, kind of risking his life to defeat Bedman and kind of have that better tomorrow. So, again, Venom, Ben mentioned, popular character. Wouldn't be surprised if we got to see him in eventually, right? That's pretty much it for our wild cards. There's a few other characters that I'm gonna mention that aren't impossible, right? But I don't think it's gonna happen. So here's our very, very doubtful list, and I'm not gonna include everybody here, obviously, but Our last kind of few would first be Dr. Peregrine. I mean, he was named in the new story mode. We are going to the coexistence of humans and gears, and he's a very important gear, so he's been asked for quite a bit, but again, I don't see it happening. It would be cool, obviously, to get a new character, but again, he does fit that mold of been waiting for because he's been playable versus, or he's been seen since Overturn 2, and, we saw him in Zerd a bunch, and they're teasing him, so he would fit that mold, but again, I don't know. We'll have to see. And kind of going off that line, similarly, Izuna, I think, is the one people probably want playable more. Kiske kind of talked about in our discussion. He also Izuna could fit the furry community very well, but it's just the fact that we also have, and the reason I have others because of Underworld Hill, right? Just because Underworld Hill is very much like where he's from. That's kind of like his home, and the fact that Bike and Stage came out with that, and obviously Izuna's like the embodiment of the Japanese, because after Japan got blown up, like other emotions kind of formed in the backyard, then got spat out as Izuna. So again, very cool, and we know how he fights. He fights with teleportation magic, so another popular character. And again, I think the map getting added is really what, like, at least for me, pushes the fact that Izuna could be playable at some point. It's gonna be season 2, who knows? But again, another character that you could fit into that role. And now we get into our last 3, which are characters that we saw at the end but don't really have much. So Raven, I mean, the thing about Raven, right, is he is pretty important just because if he's been alive forever, there's still so much that we need to, like, learn about him. And now that we're getting into demi-humans and gods, I mean, he probably is a demi-human, that's probably why he's immortal. So again, he could help explain some of that next to, like, Slayer. We don't really know what he's up to, he just kind of left, but it wouldn't be impossible for him to come back in the lore, but again, not really much currently pointing towards him, right? And the next one would probably be Answer. I mean, I was hoping to see him in this new story mode just because, again, we know that Chip was away, Anji was away, and, Answer stays with Chip, so I thought it was kind of weird that he didn't show up. I was really hoping to see him, but, I mean, again, he stays with Chip. He has ties to Chip, and we know that Chip has ties to Nagoriyuki, so we're probably going to see Chip again be pretty important, so, and if we learn more about his kingdom, there you go, he's probably taking control of that, but not impossible, but again, right now I just don't see it happening. But I mean, again, fits the mold, makes sense. And I've seen some people ask for Answers because while he's not the most popular, it's just like, yeah, people just kind of want him in because he kind of came in at, like, the end of Zerd, right? And our final characters, I guess, Kum Haehyun. Yeah, I mean, she's pretty popular. A lot of people are like, oh, she's like a Strive character in Zerd, right? She fit in so well. So we'll have to see it again if we go with Japanese, if we go that route with, like, Baiken. Mei, of course, Japanese. We do show Izuna. She obviously got Japanese. She understands Ki very well. We know Ki's, like, really important, is really powerful. So there you go. That's definitely possible. But yeah, I mean, that's pretty much a breakdown of all the characters. I mean, obviously the characters I didn't mention are, like, that are older, like Robo-Kai, Cliff, Justice. I mean, if they're gonna add Robo-Kai back, I imagine it would be with Venom, just because they hang out and they could have that be one of his pool balls. I don't see him coming back as his own character currently. I mean, I'm sorry if you really want him back. I just don't see it. Like, nothing mentioned him, not even close. I don't even see how he'd really fit into the story, right? Unless they wanted to. The only way he'd fit into stories with, like, Delilah, if they wanted Venom and Robo-Kai to meet Delilah, but again, that Venom, right? And then Cliff. I mean, Cliff's dead. I mean, if they go with a Robo mount, because we saw Robo May, they could do Robo Cliff. That's, like, the only way I really see it. Yeah, I don't know, because it would be cool, similar to how they, like, gave Bedman kind of, like, they kept Bedman, like, alive for a little bit longer to have that, like, really reconcile moment at the end of Delilah's life and finish through. They could have something similar to Testament, where Testament kind of, like, opens themselves up to that Robo, and maybe that, like, feels it somewhat or something, but again, I doubt that. And Justice, I mean, Justice is dead. You could have another parallel world with Justice 1, they could bring that over, but yeah, I don't see that happening then. New characters, again, they've hinted at maybe a new homunculus, they've hinted at a werewolf character in Happy Chaos is arcade, so nothing's impossible. But I mean, like I said, everyone's been waiting for, so I doubt it's actually be a new character we've ever seen. But yeah, no, that's about all. You can mix and match whoever you want in those, 4 to 5 season 2 slots, but hopefully you know everything now. If you really want to know my guess right now, since I did do all the research, all that jazz, I think Sin and Slayer, like I mentioned, are for sure shoe-ins. Like, I cannot see the season happening without them. Then probably like Jam and another female at least, probably like Jam, and then like Delilah or Elphelt, or Dizzy. Dizzy could work too, of course. And if we did do the surprise 5th, I think that makes sense for Johnny, like whether it's early or late. But I think if we do get 5, I'm gonna think it's Johnny, because I think male, female, or maybe they make Johnny gender neutral. That'd definitely be an interesting twist, right? But so hey, they're good friends. But regardless, yeah, no, let me know what y'all think. I'm gonna try to stream my reaction tomorrow. I'm actually gonna do it. Listen, I have time. I'm gonna do it. All right, listen. I know the last stream didn't happen. It's okay. But yeah, no. If you want to see my reaction, come check it out with me in the morning. And yeah, no, just say hi or whatever. But no, thank you all so much for watching. These videos always go on longer than I want them to. But hey, love you all a lot. Get hyped for tomorrow and take care.